Eamon Khan here, 40 seconds out, joined by Gareth A Davies, albeit over Zoom. Gareth, jumping straight into it. We had some action overseas. Jake Paul and Gervonta Davis had their launch press conference. We have the details as well, too, of how they'll contest what this is, exhibition fight. 10 3-minute rounds, 195 pounds catch weight, 12-ounce gloves, three scoring judges. Do we have a fight here, Gareth?
I'm not sure because £60 fight differential in weight, eight inches in height. Um, I think the demeanour, the comportment of Gervonta Davis was like a man who'd been dragged there against his will, shackled. Like he didn't want to be there. He didn't want to show any knowledge of the event. Couldn't remember what day it was on. It's only 7 weeks away. Now, whether he was feigning some of this, I don't know. But with Gervonta, you really don't know. I will believe it when the two step into the ring together. When I close my eyes, I can normally see the silhouettes of two men fighting. This is a very hard one to call. Because even Amir Khan at his fastest, without any vulnerability around his chin, I could not see him beating up a kind of journeyman cruiserweight, even in his pomp. I could see him getting a lot of punches off and landing and moving, but I couldn't see him putting him away. So if what I'd like to have seen from Gervonta Davis is a little bit of resistance to the euphory of Jake Paul last night, because it's almost I was almost waiting for a burst of punches from him while Jake Paul toyed and changed levels and played the fool, and it was very, very odd, wasn't it, Eamon?
Yeah, it was a bit subdued from Gervonta Davis, who
A bit subdued.
But
It was like,
he sometimes is like that though at these press conferences. He is
yeah,
sometimes.
but then he explodes, or
Mm.
something happens, or it kicks off, or it's almost like he had a personality bypass last night, you know?
Mm. Well, there was another bit of detail that came out of that press conference as well too, and that was Nikita Berdarian in a scrum was asked a load of questions from the media, and it was also revealed that there was a gentleman's agreement between Jake Paul and Anthony Joshua for 2026 for the two to collide. We've discussed that at length across a lot of detail as well as to Anthony Joshua's position within the sport, but it seems to be that he will find himself across the ring to Jake Paul.
I mean, from the sublime to the ridiculous, then, isn't it? From a £130 man to 100, basically, he's going up £100 in weight divisions. Literally going through the entire spectrum of the sport. It's an entertaining prospect. It's not one I agree with, because um, we look at the size of Gervonta Davis at 135 and his skill set, and you imagine that Jake Paul won't have the skills to pin the tail on the donkey, if you like, to use a metaphor. You know, I just can't see him hurting or landing much on Gervonta Davis. And then, if he does step in against Anthony Joshua, not a fight I think is fair or advocate for, and I think it's a very dangerous fight for him. I think many people agree with that as well. Um, I don't see that either. I don't condone that. The sanctioning the of that fight, the commissioning of that fight, because I don't think it's safe for Jake Paul. You know, it's in the same way that it's ridiculous that he fights Gervonta Davis, but he's in the ridiculous carnival circus-like game, bringing his whatever it is, 50 to 75 million subscribers with him to Netflix to create big numbers, having hijacked the platform of boxing to do what he does best.
Do have to take a hard segue away from the boxing
Okay.
action and go towards more of a somber note. Boxing world has sort of hasn't quite reacted to the loss of Ricky Hatton, whose legendary status will go forward within Manchester and further in the impact that he left the sport. But what would you say is the impact of Ricky's loss?
Um, well, terrible tragedy at the moment, to be honest, Eamon. And, you know, as someone that knew Ricky for 28 years and genuinely knew him, I'd like to say as much as I've known any fighter or boxer in the time that I've covered the sport, I mean, it was a horrific thing to wake up to, devastating thing to wake up to. on this very early Sunday morning in Las Vegas, a place where I travelled with him 5 times to his fights there, where we'd spent time celebrating in Nine Fine Irishmen with a pint of Guinness and 300 of his fans. With him with no security, crammed in there, the shit shirt competitions, the fun and laughter, the I mean, I was at his debut in Widnes in 1997 when Kingsway Leisure Centre. Frank Warren has said he's got this bright young thing, a young star with him. Those grunting, relentless body shots and attacks. He's a fantastic boxer. The legacy, if I can say this, I think it's twofold. I think one is the popularity of the sport and the everyman. He always felt like he was one of us. He made us all. I mean, the opening line of my piece in the Telegraph was that I felt devastated, but I felt like I'd lost a best friend, like millions of us felt like we'd lost a best friend, because he was that kind of guy, always making you laugh, always entertaining both in and outside the ring, an amazing raconteur. Or that I can still hear his little laugh now when he's making. He even doubled me up with a body shot once up in the ring. This is about a 10 years ago or 5 years ago now, actually 7 years ago. I had to put the body bag on. He doubled me up with a body bag with a body shot, and you can hear his giggle as he's done it. He was tremendous fun to be around, and I think as a media guy, he was an absolute treasure trove of stories. Some of them tales of daring do after hours that you could never put in the paper or tell on these kind of interviews, because he just had a lot of fun. The most popular boxer I've ever been around in my lifetime, obviously Frank Bruno was very popular, as was Henry Cooper in our country. An incredible journey. He fought 3 of the top 5 pound for pound. His Everest was the Costure's Unite, probably one of the greatest performances by a British boxer on these shores. Obviously, that propelled him into that American journey. But I think the other side of it is the tragedy of the end of his life, and perhaps the last 10 years. Certainly in 3 or 4 interviews I did with him, he talked about the darkness inside himself. And I think even when people are open about what's going on, and we don't know, some people leave this life of their own volition and they just can't handle something anymore. And that darkness is there and they can't control it. And I think that will be a part of the legacy that perhaps people will explore after Ricky's life. I mean, obviously the inquest isn't open yet into his passing. We know that he was suicidal. We don't know what the outcome is yet, but there's a lot of things around Ricky. It's been a very odd and weird and tragic week, because Tom Jabezi, who I knew a long time, 20 years, the writer, has gone as well suddenly at 57. But I suppose the longer you live, the more your colleagues will depart, people you know will depart. It's very sad. I hope they find a monument, a tribute to Ricky Hatton that's befitting his popularity. And I do hope we get to walk down Deansgate with 50,000 or 60,000 people in memory of Ricky Hatton. That's probably the best tribute I can give to him. All those things, really.
A very heartfelt tribute, Gareth. Obviously, Ricky's legacy lives on, and Chris Eubank Jr. and Conor Benn are looking to build their legacy. Chris launched into a tirade of a number of contentious points which have been dealt with between Robert Smith and Eddie Hearn. At the point that I think Chris, at least speaking to his team, was that he cares about the sport and wants a certain few things change, and is a bit confused as to the position in the first fight and him coming out of it. Did you get that point across? Do you feel too?
No, I don't think he cares about the sport. I think he cares about himself.
No?
No, I don't think he cares about the sport. I think some of the things he said were ill-advised and misjudged. To the Boxing Board of Control have a difficult job. I've known Robert Smith a long time, and I think he does a really good job. I knew him when he was the Under Secretary of the Boxing Board. He's been around in it for, I think, 30 years that I've known him. Certainly I think around about 30 years. He does a fantastic job in a very difficult role as the sole spokesman for the Boxing Board of Control, which is overseen obviously by its board and its stewards. It is a difficult sport to police. And I'm not sitting here defending him, even though it sounds like I am. But I think the accusation of, well, Robert Smith has taken very seriously the delayed ambulance, the 20-minute ambulance that Chris Eubank has claimed wasn't allowed to leave the venue. I thought what Chris did at the press conference, even though he's a brilliant orator, and I like Chris very much, but I think he chooses who he wants to speak to and when he wants to speak to them these days. And did you get an interview with him on?
No, did you, Gareth?
No, no,
Yeah, I
no.
thought I did raise that to Eubank Junior's team, and they were surprised as to why he didn't speak to
I've
journalists.
been trying to speak to him for weeks,
Yeah.
and he's not available. He's got too many grievances around his contract and this, that, and the other, which is fair enough.
He did make himself available to some people during that
Yeah,
press
and
conference.
he seemed very chipper with Turki Al Sheikh when he was with him.
Mhm.
Slightly different. He played villain and victim, is the way I've put it. He played villain and he played victim at the press conference. He was very skilled. He's a very skilled orator. He's a very skilled fighter. I've always been, I've always liked. I like the Eubank family. I think we're blessed to have them in boxing. I think they're extraordinarily intelligent. They are natural warriors. They're built for it. But as I say, 1 minute he's playing the villain, and then the next minute he's playing the victim. And yes, he can have it both ways. But I knew that he had a lot of grievances because I was trying to get an interview with him for Ring magazine for the edition. I was tasked with doing a big piece, a winner's piece from that fight in April. And he just wasn't available. And I think it's sad that, and obviously it wouldn't have come out. It was for the November issue ahead of the fight that they're about to have on the 15th at Spurs. And just couldn't get him. And I've done many things with him in the past. I've done collaborations with him under the banner of William Hill. You've been around, what, 7 or 8 years in this? I mean, I go back all the way to when he started his career, to the Billy Joe Saunders fight 14, 15 years ago. I've been around him a long time. I've done the hard yards, and he's always been a pleasure to interview and fascinating. And I think that there's more of a funnel now about getting access to him. Look, both he and Chris Eubank, both he and Conor Benn put up the fight of the year so far, in my view, in April, and I think they will again. But I think his grievances with Matchroom, I've kind of revised my view slightly. I mean, I think you should be able to choose whoever you want to watch the hand wraps, but Billy Joe Saunders might have taken it too far in the dressing room and caused consternation. I get that now. I didn't think about it at the time, but then I think, that was sensible, because Billy probably would have caused inordinate problems in that dressing room.
Mm-hmm.
Not that might have affected the outcome of the fight. And I feel the same. When I saw the two men next to each other again this time, I just thought there is such a huge size difference, which is why Eubank was able to weather those punches coming in at him from all angles from Conor Benn, and I think he will again, even though it may be slightly closer this time. But I think the contractual grievances that he airs with Matchroom are part of the scene anyway, and that's down to his team to iron those out. The ambulance thing needs looking into. If it was delayed 20 minutes, that needs looking into. And so I'm not surprised when I spoke to Robert Smith. I mean, I spoke to him for Talk Sport last week, and those comments have gone everywhere since, which he's consulting his legal team about the accusations about what board does with its money. And also he's concerned about the ambulance issue as well, which we must be, because that golden hour is very important if someone's, very ill. So, all in all, what he managed to do, which is why it's fascinating, is to sell the fight again. And so we have got unfinished business in 7 weeks' time.
Okay, Gareth, I appreciate your time. I know you got another deadline to adhere to. Thanks for speaking to Seconds Out. We'll talk again soon.
Always a pleasure, Eamon. Cheers.
Never a chore. Cheers, Gareth.
Cheers.